president was at the National Economies Summit Group conference in Abuja, and the president made it clear of his commitment in ensuring that there is a waking up of the Nigerian economy, a lot of worries as to the performance of the Nigerian economy. And one of those things that he said is the fact that there is a possibility of $1 trillion inflow into the Nigerian economy, and also to fixing the FX problems. These are some of the issues that have been raised. Mr. Wale Edun a few days ago had said $10 billion might be coming into the economy in the next few days. All of these issues are issues on how we can get the economy started again. But let's listen to President Bola Tinubu earlier today in Abuja.
A $1 trillion economy is possible. By year 2026. And a $3 trillion economy is also possible within this decade. We can do it with double-digit inclusive and sustainable competitive growth. This is our agenda. I would like to charge you, the captains of industry here present, to commit yourself and redouble your effort to our vision of a renewed hope, more prosperous Nigeria, a better Nigeria for all.
As President Bola Tinubu, I'm being joined by Mr. Adetilewa Adebacho, who is an economic expert. Thanks so much indeed for joining us tonight. It's good to see you here in our Abuja studio.
Thank you. My first time here.
Yeah. How do you find it?
Lovely.
Thank you so much indeed. Let's begin the conversation. You were there in that room when the president said it. Was that speech an inspiring one for you?
Well, yes, indeed, because first of all, the Nigerian economy right now is a $1 trillion economy already. Mm-hmm. The problem with the Nigerian economy now is been the mismanagement of the last 8 years. 2015, our GDP was close to $600 billion. And in the last 8 years, we've lost about $200 to $250 billion of our GDP, including the current devaluation. If you add that $200 billion that we lost, or the $250 billion we lost, to the $600 billion GDP, our GDP right now will be close to $850 billion, which is only $150 billion shy of $1 trillion GDP economy. So the last 8 years for us has been a significant loss. So right now we need to try to rebuild and get back to where we are. So the potential of the Nigerian economy is not in doubt. What has hampered this economy has been the mismanagement over the last 8 years.
Now, so the economy might not be an inspiring one, but sometimes you need an inspiring leader to lead you out of an uninspiring situation. Did you see that in that room today?
Yes, I think for the first time for me, I think there was clarity in terms of the focus for the economic group. Because after a series of false starts, I think the president made a very clear statement where he identified the issues at hand. And not only did he do that, he had his team with him. So there was the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy, the Minister of Budget and Planning, and the Central Bank Governor. For the first time, we saw all three of them in the same room. So after the president gave his speech and he left, there was a plenary session when these three ministers were put on the stage, and they came out with detailed explanation of what their plan was. And when you see three ministers who are responsible for the economy, two ministers and the central bank governor, all singing from the same hymn sheet, in coordination, in unison, and understanding the issues, then I think you know that there is progress to be made. And I think the president himself touched on all the issues. He didn't hide from any of the issues. So what he was saying is the fact that, yes, it's not perfect, and some mistakes might have been made, but he's ready to correct the mistakes and work with the private sector to make things better. So I think for me, that was the best takeaway.
I mean, okay, so there are those who describe some conversations as where they sound fantastic, but they are rubbish in terms of implementation. So they call them fantastic rubbish. In what was said today, as an expert, can you make sense considering the kind of quagmire the economy is in right now? Can you make sense? Is it in tandem? Does it look like a solution and a fix to the problem of our economy today?
Yes, I think for me, without a doubt, the fact that I saw Mr. Waliedu, who is the coordination minister of the economy, and don't forget he's an ex-banker. He used to be with Chase Manhattan, which is now JP Morgan Chase. You had Bagudu, Atiku Bagudu, who is also an ex-City banker, who's also had senatorial and governorship experience, and Yemi Cardozo, an ex-City banker also, who is former commissioner for budgets in Lagos and now CBN governor. When you see three gentlemen like that who have some solid experience, all talking from the same hymn book, singing the same songs in coordination, it gives you confidence. And more importantly, they talked about this in honesty. And I think my takeaway from the fact that they said that things have bottomed out, that they have stopped the subsidy payments, they've stopped a lot of things, and they felt everything is bottomed out.
Is that truthful, though?
Yes, I mean,
the
yes.
stoppage of
yes, that's
because
yes.
in practical terms,
they confirmed it today.
Yeah, in practical terms. So where are those cushion coming from?
Well, most of everything they're doing now, I think they're saying they're using cash. So what they've confirmed today from this economic summit is that, yes, they accept that things have bottomed out now, and all those things have been stopped, and now they're beginning to rebuild. So it's now a question of, and they're now saying that, look, it's not yet Uhuru, and we need time. And Nigerians should understand that this game or this rebuilding process is not a sprint.
And it will be painful.
It'll be painful, but it's a marathon. But at the end of that marathon, we'll be better off. So I think for me, the honesty by which the delivery came also gives a lot of confidence to what they were trying to do and what they were trying to say.
Now, before I come into what the details of what the president said and where the $1 trillion will be coming from, Mr. Waliedu said that $10 billion is coming in the next few weeks to address the foreign exchange crisis. Did he say where exactly that money is coming from? Is it going to be a borrowing or what?
Well, what they said, and I think they both said so, the president said so in his speech, that they have a line of sight to $10 billion.
Would that reflate? Would that fix the FX
well, let's also understand. They said they have a line of sight to $10 billion that they want to borrow.
Okay, so it's borrowing for sure.
Well, yeah, they say they have a line of sight to $10 billion. That they have a line of sight to $10 billion within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And Mr. Waliedu re-echoed that. So the question now is that what do they want to use this $10 billion for? Okay? So we also know from what the central bank governor told us that it wasn't time to go to the IMF. Okay? We also got information from the World Bank representative that was there that, yes, there's also another $1.5 billion that wants to come from the World Bank in approach. So this money is not, this $10 billion is not from the World Bank, and they are not going to the IMF. So
what? Could it be from China?
Well, what
could it be from Russia? Maybe not.
Well,
so I'm just imagining. Or from the US.
It's most likely a bilateral facility. So we're not sure where it's coming from, but it's probably likely a bilateral facility from another country, and they've had some sort of arrangement. But we'll find out those details in maybe another 2 to 3 weeks. But what they're saying is the line of sight is that the $10 billion is there. So how do you use your $10 billion? Are you going to use it to clear your $7 to $10 billion backlog of foreign exchange? Are you going to hold it and maybe use it as some sort of war chest to gradually intervene in the markets? So how these funds are going to be used, I think we don't have those details yet. But what they have said is that they have a line of sight to $10 billion. So how they're going to use that money, we haven't really known. But we know that it's not coming from the World Bank, it's not coming from the IMF, and it's not coming from, I don't think, any commercial bank.
I mean, see, around the issue of monetary policy, well, fiscal side of things, but if a lot of people have described it as a roller coaster and a policy somersault, when some of the items that have been on restriction are now, recently Mr. Cardoso have now said those items are now back on stream. I mean, what sense does it make to those who think that there was some kind of progress by delisting those items, but now relisting them? Does it make sense?
Well, don't let's confuse that. And, you know, I don't want to be a spokesperson for the government, okay, but they can come and explain themselves. But when you say banned items, Nigeria never banned the importation of those goods. So I think that's the mistake a lot of people are making. Those goods were legitimate goods, but what the last central bank governor did was say, these goods cannot come to import foreign exchange. So where does all these people with the 43 items, where do they go? They go to the parallel market and they put pressure on it. So the take we got from today was that they're developing a new foreign exchange mechanism. And what they're saying in that new foreign exchange mechanism is going to be all-inclusive. So you don't want to create a parallel market. So everybody needs to be in the same market so that they can monitor and coordinate that market better. And from the way I see things and the way they're talking about it, we're probably going to have a Nigerian foreign exchange interbank market so that we have one single market where everybody can go to, and there's no distortion or a distinction between a parallel market and a I&E window. So they want to crash the parallel markets and make sure that there's only one market. And that's the market where everybody goes to the bank, you open your DOM account, you inflow your dollars, you outflow your dollars, and eventually from there you get an FX and you develop a Nigerian foreign exchange interbank markets, which will serve all of us.
The marriage that the CBN, since he talked about collapsing all those disparities, yes, and the multiple windows, had brought with it also some consequences, as we see now. Today, Mr. Adebayo, if you want to get dollars from your Naira, you'll be paying over 1,200. Over 1,200.
1,200.
And there are those, I call them the economic pessimists, who have been right. In the last 3 years, they've said there will come a time that the dollar will be at 1,000. And they are now right. And they've also told me that, look, before December, if you're not careful, the dollar might be about 2,000. And I hope they're not right, because they are now right once. But in all of this, how do we tame what has become the rising trend in our FX?
Well, you have to understand, why is there demand for FX? So let's understand what is causing the foreign exchange problem. First of all, we have 30 trillion in Ways and Means financing, which is an illegal financing means. The Ways and Means financing on the CBN balance sheet should not be more than 1 trillion. So Ways and Means finances is 30 times over the limit, okay, which is completely excessive. So that itself is putting pressure on inflation. So the biggest challenge we have in our economy today is inflation. Real rates and real yields are negative. So that if you put 10 million naira in your bank accounts today, the interest rates they're paying you, you'll probably be making a loss of close to 11, 12% every year. So nobody wants to lose value on their investment. So what do people do? They put their money into dollars. So because the yields in the country, real yields, are negative, people are looking for foreign exchange as a viable asset to store value because of inflation. So we also need to address the inflationary pressure on the economy. So if we bring down the rates of inflation to a significant level, then we'll also reduce that demand for foreign exchange, because foreign exchange demand is not only going towards goods and services, but people are using it as a store of value. At a point in time in this country, 45% or 40% of our money supply was in foreign exchange in domiciliary banks, in domiciliary accounts in banks in Nigeria. Today, maybe that amount is maybe 10 or 15%. Because people do not have the confidence to put money in their DOM accounts anymore.
We have hardworking, and I don't have any apologies for saying this, and it's the truth and that we need to face as a people. We have hardworking citizens but lazy leaders who find it difficult to think. And I say lazy leaders, and this has been in the last 4 decades or so. As a people today, we cannot boast of what we produce. The ones that we are so blessed with, we cannot lay claim to the end-to-end production of it. oil, we get it under the ground, we put it together, most part of it are stolen, and we can, under our nose, under the security watch, they are stealing away out of this country into private hands in collusion with some people. And now this all happens. We take the oil out of the country. We cannot refine on our soil. We have 4 refineries. Sadly, we cannot refine on Nigerian soil. Dangote, as an individual, has built a refinery. There was a time, Mr. Adebajo, which you were very much aware of, that Nigeria was known as an agrarian economy. Where did all that go? Those who had come to take palm oil, take cocoa here in Nigeria, and are producing them locally in their own whatever. We have cocoa in abundance, but we don't have chocolate. We have a lot of palm oil, but we cannot export those things. This is very sad. It's a lazy mentality that our leaders have plunged our people into. If we cannot start thinking about production, how do we then be able to build an economy? Did you see that this government were thinking today about us have been a nation that we can be identified for a production of one thing?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head, because a lot of these problems have manifested themselves over the last 20 years, and it has become a crisis. As you said, Nigeria is a top 10 oil and gas producing nation in the world, but we cannot refine any products in Nigeria. So that in itself is an indictment on this country. Now, those 4 refineries you're talking about, there's an allocation of 450,000 barrels of crude oil for those refineries every day that are not producing. So what happened to the 450,000 barrels? Where does it go to? So there are many questions that you can ask yourself. But I think, as the central bank governor said today, we asked him a question on ways and means. He said, look, let us, when there's a myriad of problems, let us take the first one and resolve it, so that by resolving one, we now look at the second one and put something in place. So the feedback that I got, not only from the president's speech, but from the various breakout sessions we had, and the question is the fact that, because these were all very confidential reports on Chatham House rules, so I can't really go into details, but basically the take I got was that it was a very honest engagement, and they understood those issues. And at the end of the day, you sometimes feel sorry for them that, you guys understand, can you really get this thing done? But at the end of the day, I think they understand the issues. And like I've said, we have 3 very capable gentlemen, Atiku Bagudu, Wale Edu, and Yemi Cardozo. These are men who've had both private sector banking experience and also public sector experience. Their interaction today for me was quite positive. And I think that if they can do the things they say they want to do, I believe that, we can, with sincerity, like I said, I've always mentioned also that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So it's a long game of maybe the next 12 to 18 months before we begin to see some sort of relief. But the policy implementation needs some consistency.
I mean, for those who we've heard this in the campaigns, that we said that we need to produce, we need to lift this economy from consumption to production.
Productive capacity, yes.
As much as that sounds like a political rhetoric,
it's not a rhetoric. It's reality.
It's a reality.
It's a reality.
It does sounded like a rhetoric. But I mean, if you go to the United States, for example, Wisconsin, for example, in the United States, is known as the dairy center of the United States.
I went to university there, undergrad.
Yeah.
I went to
almost every state of the United States has something that is known for.
Yes.
So the question is that, and I'm putting this to President Tinubu and his team, what would you like Nigeria to be known for in the next 3 years? And all the state governors in all the subnationals in this country. I mean, my community where I come from Kwara State, the symbol of the association of my community is okra, the okra soup, the okra. We are known for production of okra. But I don't know whether or not the community leaders are still producing okra in the quantity that can be taken out of this country. But how can any state of the nation and a state governor come forward to say, this is what we produce in my own state? Isn't it a shame that we have states and they go to the federal government every time to look for handouts, and we look at the state of the state the other day, and we're looking at states that are fundamentally having problems. They cannot even fend for themselves. To finalize and conclude this conversation, Mr. Adebajo, how do we typify ourselves as a people to items, to production? Where do we start from? What is the low-hanging fruit? What can we produce that we can take, export to the rest of the world?
See, for me, I think when you have done something before, you have to return to basics. You see the model of the Western region and what Chief Obafemi Awolowo did. University of Ife was built with cocoa money, not oil money. Cocoa House was built with cocoa money and investments and opening up. The whole of GRA in Ikeja industrial area was all built with investments coming through, and the infrastructure was there. In those days, nobody drove a truck into Apapa Port. All those factories you see in Ikeja from 1960s, they had railway lines coming in through there. Yeah. So let us go back to, you see, when we have done something before, it's not as if we haven't done it before. It's not as if Nigerians are not well trained. I mentioned 3 gentlemen today. These are highly trained Nigerians. So what is needed, like you have said, is the leadership to go back to the basic fundamentals. Let us go and restore our values. It is the value system that we need to address in this country. Right. Once we restore the value system and the leadership is ready to move, we've done this before. Let's go back to the basics. Let's go back to the fundamentals. And, we'll get it right, because each region in Nigeria was known for what they did.
Yeah. Mr. Tilewa Adebajo, thank you so much indeed for those insights that you've shared with us on the program tonight. And I hope our leaders are listening, and the people also who take action in all that is necessary to move this nation forward. Thanks so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it.